what does a CFO do today?
I think the CFO is in a bit of a cusp right now because it has been, as you said, it's been evolving so much, and definitely strategy has become a very big part of their job. If you look at the last 6 years, it's been disruption after disruption. It's been COVID, it's been wars, it's been supply chain crisis, it's been now AI. I think where it is going in the future is, I have a term, Chief Future Officer.
But when you're more business aware, you know that the reality, the context of everything changes. So what changes about the role of intuition in today's world?
Data is fantastic. I love it. But there is an extent beyond which it is your intuition that tells you what you should do and should not do. And I think as humans, we have fantastic intuition, and that's our strength.
Nobody is giving me incentives for not allowing the fire to happen in the first place. So do you think that the wrong people in departments are getting promoted? For most of history, people who've controlled the world are the ones who've controlled land, labor, or capital. But we are increasingly getting into a time wherein influence and power comes from controlling intelligence. But with the advent of AI, something interesting is happening. For the first time in history, intelligence is now available in abundance. And if you have access to intelligence so easy, do you not think that intelligence now becomes cheap?
It's a very good question, Razum, and I do not think that intelligence is that democratized as we think that it is or it is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say that is this. Let's take, for example, when Google came, when search came. We thought information is going to be democratic. Everybody has access to information, so we will all learn. And it did happen. I mean, we definitely now things we can get, before Google we couldn't, it was only available in books. You had to get to a library and so on. But did that make us better decision makers, or did that make us better in our intelligence? Maybe, maybe not. It made us more knowledgeable, probably not more intelligent. When I look at AI, we sometimes forget that it's next word prediction. It is not intelligence, right? It is predicting the next word based on a lot of data that was there in the past. Okay. It cannot foresee the future. It cannot create things for the future in the way that we think it does. I mean, what it's doing is just a prediction of the next word based on algorithms. That does two things. One is, of course, the one good thing is that it gives you information at fingertips. It also can think like Aristotle, think like Plato. You can put in whatever you want. It can take whatever they have produced in the past, apply the concept to it, and do it. But human intelligence means that we're creating something every day with what we have in our heads. That's what distinguishes us from animals or anybody else in this world.
Correct.
And if we don't have any creation in the future, the technology cannot create it for us. So I still think that, yes, information is cheap. Intelligence, I'm not too sure what we call intelligence, if it is really intelligence.
Okay.
Cheap.
You've mentioned decision making. Does that solve decision making? Access to information. See, we've grown up in a world where intelligence or information was very scarce, and we were trained to hire analysts, experts, consultants. They would come and do the intelligent work and give us all the answers. But it wouldn't be wrong to say that today you can just make a query on say ChatGPT and get the best of answers depending on patterns, data, but you will have access to it. So that means that people will now have all the answers. But you're still saying that it doesn't really mean that they will be good decision makers. So if answers are available in abundance, what is it that gives you an edge today? Is it judgment? Is it courage? Or is it just on-spot decision making? What do you boil down to today?
I would take all of what you have said into one word, maybe, or term called problem solving. And I think problem solving is still scarce. If you look at the best leaders or the best even analysts, why leaders? they're ones who solve problems. They're not ones who analyze well or ones who use data well. I'll give you a simple example in my own team, and we are not even talking like leadership decisions, we are talking day to day decisions. Databricks now has AI embedded in it. Fantastic, it does a fantastic job. I will have one analyst use it in a different way, another one use it in a different way, and that depends on how are they actually creating the problem, how are they molding the problem statement to get the answer they want, how are they using the analysis that they get to apply it to the business.
Okay.
I think that is still scarce. It was scarce before, it is going to be scarce in the future, and as you go to leadership levels, that becomes even more important, because most of leadership is around decision making in crisis, or decision making for strategy, or decision making for judgment. It is not really decision making for practical, tactical things that are possible today, probably by the machine.
Okay. And we see, so I understand what you're saying is that the right interpretation of question and answers will make you better decision makers. When we get the right interpretation, we get the right access at the right time to intelligence, we have the right answers. How difficult it is, or how different it is for people today to execute it? Where do you see the challenges that comes in execution of strategies, decisions? What would you name the top two obstacles today for people? Let's say for leaders.
I think the two differentiating factors, if I flip your question to what makes good leaders.
You've intelligence, you've got answers, you've got the right interpretation. I see people still fail. They still struggle. So what does it boil down to?
I think it boils down to good judgment and instinct.
Okay.
I think you can have how much ever intelligence, how much ever analysis you want. If you do not have the right instinct, and if you do not have a sense, I'm a believer of connecting the dots. For me, everything in the world is a data point until the time you connect it with those threads.
Okay.
I think what is truly scarce, to your earlier point, and what truly will differentiate people now and in the future is that connection of the dots, which comes back to judgment, which comes back to instinct, to a lot of the things that you have mentioned.
So context.
Context and the ability to think holistically and not think narrow, to think broad and not think narrow.
You've talked about instinct. See, people in general have a problem that we humans, we panic very early and we sleep until very late. With the trending thing around the world, that's only one thing: AI. Do you think we're overhyping AI in the short run and underestimating it in the long run?
I completely agree, and I think it's human nature to do so. I think we do that for everything. Happened to all technology in the past.
Okay.
I also think in organizations, people are incentivized for the short term more than the long term. Be it leaders, be it others. People are not incentivized for 10 years later in any organization. And that makes you think a little bit about today, about business outcomes today rather than business outcomes in the future. AI is amazing. I use it a lot. I think it has tremendous potential. I think two things that people are underestimating for the future is firstly business model disruption.
Okay.
And that is big. Right now it is mostly in the 4Cs: content and marketing, consulting, customer service, coding. But I don't think there is any business that is going to be the same and not get disrupted in the future. And I think we are underestimating that. The second thing we are underestimating is business continuity and not just business disruption. Because think of a scenario in the future where all your workforce, all your workflows, all your processes are really based on AI. Think of something where most of your decision making is happening through AI, either by a human at the end of it or through itself. But that entire thing is at the end of the day based on models, it's based on data, it's based on compute, it's based on energy. Wherever in the world you are today, there is low energy in most places. We know how supply chains are broken for energy. We have seen that in crisis.
Correct.
We also see that places like Ireland have stopped having data centers now.
Mm.
They've said we can't do expansion. I think we are underestimating those things as to what does it take for this to work at scale in the long term,
Mm.
and what happens if your business just shuts down because you don't have power, for example. I'm taking one example here.
Yeah.
But that is how I think we are overhyping the reality of the short term, because we see the potential and there's great potential, but not thinking through the consequences of what can happen in the future.
We've always been doing that. It is, in a layman language, it is like when I go to the gym, I start the gym, my body aches, my legs pain. Now, I think it's not the right decision that I've made, and this is not for me, and I stop going to the gym because I'm just looking at the first order consequences. Had I stayed back to look at the second order consequences, that in about 30 days, the body pain will go, and I'll start to feel a bit more fit and light, and in about 6 months, that's the third order consequence. I'll be very healthy and active, and overall, most problems, the obesity problem in India that's around will have been solved. So people generally do not look at the second order and third order of consequences from their action. You've mentioned about business models getting disrupted, and when you say that, do you what do you think is will be the toughest? I mean, what will fail businesses moving ahead? Is it bad decision of the selecting the technology partners? Is it technology, or is it changing their DNA to fit the new?
I think it's DNA. I think technology will continue to change. Technology, you can, and I think in the past, people have used good technology, they've done good implementations, they've done bad implementations. I think, yes, those things matter, but they matter less than just the DNA. And the DNA to me that is really going to be important is adaptability and flexibility. We are so used to a world where we do most things the same way a lot. There are some things that have got disrupted. For example, if you look at e-commerce disrupted retail, right? Cloud has disrupted the way businesses operate,
Yeah.
and so on. But very few technologies have disrupted both business models and operating models at the same time. And AI has the potential to do that. It has the potential to disrupt both simultaneously. And we are not used to that. Companies are not used to adapting that fast to something that changes, at the drop of a hat. It is changing every few months. In this kind of an environment, what is going to be important is two things. One is to have a long term structure and a long term framework to think through and make sure organization is structurally flexible. It's not about flexible today or flexible tomorrow, but how do you set up a structure in the organization that you can always adapt, you can always be flexible to it. And the second is the mindset of the people, that you have to constantly learn, constantly, renew yourself. There's a concept that I have written in my book, CFO AI Compass, called renewable asset.
Okay.
So people to me are renewable assets. It's a mindset has to be renewable,
Okay.
where you're constantly thinking fresh, you're thinking long term, you're thinking flexible and adaptable. And talent and skills, again, have to be looked at in the same manner also.
So you're saying that the DNA will be the most problematic factor in the change that's about to come in the next decade or so. And when you say that, do you think it is because, see, again, I'll take it back to the human psychology. People are very scared of things that push them through to their uncomfortable zones, that uncover the hidden truth that they don't want you to see. I think AI is doing that. There's an AI platform that comes in and today suddenly wants to work with procurement, integrate across engineering, and then get down to finance, then contracts, then legal, and everything gets integrated. It also uncovers a lot of hidden comfort areas that people are just ignoring because it's the overall machine is working. How do you advise people who are watching us that they go about solving these adoption issues? Give two strategies that you may think of or suggest to anybody.
Two strategies to look at adoption of these. I would say one is, how do you take people along? How do you make them comfortable? And people are comfortable if there is something in it for the company, but also something in it for them. You know, it is very important. And I'm not talking about incentives, money, etc. I'm talking about conviction. And conviction, I feel, is sometimes missing in transformations, in these kind of disruptive, phases, where people have to be convinced that this is the right thing for them and the future, and not just right for the company. So that mindset shift needs to come. That is the first one. The second thing I would say, which is very important in these kind of changes, is also that the proof points are there. Now, if you're uncovering something, there is transparency, and there are processes that have come out that are not maybe as good as you thought they were. The proof point that you can fix it, make it better, and that making it better makes somebody's life easier after that. And you do not get into a blame game that this was like this is not as good. So how can you also make those proof points and make it something positive going forward? I think, again, it is about bettering something. As long as people see that it is getting better for themselves, I think everybody wants something better for themselves.
Do you think people are also scared of losing control?
Definitely. I think people are always scared of losing control.
That's why they're defying and delaying adoption.
Absolutely. There is, and let's take data as an example on this one, right? I've been in the data field for many, many years now. The tools to govern data, the tools to make data good, all that has been, processes have been there for decades. But tell me one organization that has its data completely in place. Right? There is nobody. And that is not because it's not possible. That is not because of the tools. That's not because of structure. It is simply because of what you're talking about, which is lack of control. Now, if you look at data and analytics and you look at it as something that helps, empowers a person. So say you're implementing it in supply chain where it's helping somebody make decisions, choosing products to keep complementary products. So anything to do with the business where it is actually making their job easier, people love it. Right? Because you're democratizing it in a way that it empowers them. The moment you use data, then you give it to leaders, right? You ensure transparency across, which is a fantastic thing. It's fantastic for the business, fantastic for leaders to know what's happening in every part of the organization. But the fact is that then they ask a lot of questions immediately. So data makes people, it puts a level of transparency that makes people uncomfortable, because then people are asking questions all the time. Why is this low? Why is this not as expected, etc.? And it immediately puts people in a discomfort. It is not just loss of control, it is also loss of freedom in some manner. So that balance has been very tough to get in data. Between that control and the democratization, and adoption has been low because of that. Now, if we don't identify the root cause of that, you're going to have the same problem in AI. AI is no different.
Because you said that data empowers people, but there is also another reality that whoever controls the data controls the decisions. So, do you really think that data will decentralize power and decisions, or will it just make things bad?
I think it depends on how data is used. So data is data. It's a hard asset if I look at it. But data becomes a soft asset when you put context into it, or when you say how is it used. So either the input of context of the data, or the output of usage of the data. Now, data per se is not bad. It is how it is used. I'll give you a very simple example, right? So say, let's take one concrete example. You introduced dynamic pricing in an organization. Fantastic data, analytics does a fantastic job. You can put AI into it now. It gives you data saying, today at this point you need to price it this way.
Yeah.
But what does it do? It takes away control from the person to actually do the pricing. Now, there are two ways you can do it. You can either give it to them and say, you need to use this, and this is going to improve our margins, it's going to improve XYZ. And what do they feel? Loss of control. And then what will they do? They will actually override it. I've seen it. Like, they will override that price, put their own price to retain that control.
I can believe that, yes.
Right? The second way to do it is to actually judge them on outcomes, right? To now, if you are in charge of that margin, you are in charge of that sales, and you say, here is a tool I'm giving you to empower you to actually achieve your objectives, then you change the game a little bit. You're not forcing them to use it, you're making them test it. Right? You're giving them proof points saying that this country or this unit or this place has used it and they have been able to improve their margins by X% by doing this. Why don't you try it and do the same? They try it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then they will give you feedback on it to say, yes, but this is working, this is not working. Then you can go fix what is not working in that tool or that data, and then give it to them in a way that empowers them actually to make those decisions. So to me, it is about how do you use it, how do you put it in context, rather than the hard data on its own.
Yeah, and as you're saying it makes sense because, when we went inside a Fortune 50 company to implement AI, we were meeting the procurement team, and we were discussing how do they do the BOQs that they have. And they said that we received independent BOQs from the engineers, and then we compile it, and then we send it out to suppliers. So we were trying to understand how do you design the BOQs and what is it that you're doing. It's taking up a lot of their time. And then they were telling us very complex processes, opening up Excel sheets that will have 10 different sheets. And then when we came out from that meeting and we brainstormed, we found out that they were just compiling the data. It was a very simple task. But the way they presented it to us, we almost felt like they were the ones who were making missiles and rockets that needs to go to the moon. So I think people create complex processes to create need of them and them as a rare talent, and to increase dependency on them. How do you solve for this with AI? And obviously adoption would be a problem. So how are you solving for this?
I think this has been a problem with all technology. It is not just AI. People always feel threatened when they feel something can do the job that they have been doing, either better than them or even equally good, right, as them. Which is why I come back a little bit to the whole renewable asset thing, and I believe very strongly in it, because I do think that the age of being a finance expert, marketing expert, any expert is gone. In the future. Yes, you need functional knowledge, and think of it this way. I'm an economist by training, right? I look at demand and supply, right? The basics. Now, on the one hand, you have a demand which no business can run without people. At the end of the day, you can have how much of a technology you want. You're going to need people, right? But the problem is those people are not going to have the same skill sets that you need. Those skill sets probably now will change every year. It is not a one-time change of skill set that you're talking about. They're going to probably constantly change. On the supply side, you have really good people with great functional expertise, great business expertise, who feel threatened now because their jobs are getting taken over by AI.
Yes.
Now we can take a short-term approach to it and say, let's take out this much of workflows, replace them with other people, so on and so forth. But we're not going to solve the problem. 1 year later, we'll be in the same position. We'll need a different workforce. So how do you rethink the entire talent strategy and the future of organizations and people? How do you think of it as, how do you train people for fungible skills which can actually be used whether you're in finance and marketing? Because I can learn accounting laws now very fast. I don't really need to be, to do 3 years of training or 4 years of training any longer to do that, right? I can, unfortunately, even law, something that I used to think is very complex, now is no longer that complex thanks to tools and technology. But what is going to be complex is interpretation. What is going to be complex is problem solving. What is going to be, so how do you make people fantastic problem solvers? And irrespective of which thing you put them into, they're able to solve the problem. One company I worked with, I can name it, IKEA, I think had a fantastic model. So they do not judge people or put people based on only expertise. They really put them based on their skills, their leadership skills, their implementation skills, and so on. So you used to find people in supply chain who are not supply chain experts. I used to find people in finance who are not finance experts, right? The person in charge of food had never done food in his life.
Wow.
Right? And that was a fantastic model because they become business people. It doesn't matter what you are. You are about the business. We are in a certain business at that time of home furnishing and food and so on and so forth. Right? What is important is that you know the business. What is not important is the, what you actually bring, because those can be learnt.
Yeah.
They're not things that you cannot learn. Yes, it takes training. It takes a bit of time, but you can learn it.
But what is in it for the company? I may lower my guards and I may be ready to adopt the new. I am now looking towards AI with a very positive vibe. But tell me, what is in it for the company to look at the second order consequences, and do they really have any incentive, or will they also pick the easy and lay off and make it all AI operated, when they will give access to the data and tell them that no, the processes are actually simple?
I think companies are not evaluating the ROI of one versus the other. Now I'm wearing a finance hat here,
Hmm.
and business hat, but I don't think they're thinking through it that way. They are thinking about it short term, thinking that, okay, right now I need these people, I don't need X, Y, Z, and so on.
Which is wrong.
Which is wrong, because in the long term, how long does it take to train people, to hire people, to train people? How difficult is it to take out people? How much anxiety does it create in the enterprise? How much does it freeze an enterprise when something like this happens? Everybody stops working.
Yeah.
It's not just the people that are gone. Everybody stops working in that. I think those are short term, those are consequences that you cannot really recover very fast from. And I don't think people are thinking about it in that sense. Think of what I was saying earlier, where you have people who can do anything. Now, what is important, what they gain is business knowledge, which is specific to your business, your company. What incentive do those people have to leave your company and go somewhere else? You actually increase the retention of your company.
Yeah.
Inside your company of good people, when you actually train people to be problem solvers for the future. Because then they are committed to that company, they're committed to that business. They're not just jumping for for just pay or just. So to me, it is actually in the benefit of the company, but I don't think people are thinking through it from a long-term perspective enough to view it in that manner.
With your answers, I'm almost beginning to believe that AI is a culture problem more than a technology problem.
It is definitely, there is no doubt about that one.
You've emphasized so much on renewable asset and problem solvers and upskilling. Why did you write a book on AI?
I have been very lucky that I have been in finance and AI and digital and data. Right? I've had some fantastic opportunities in my life. In multiple companies, I have implemented AI. And like you say, I've seen that it's not a technology problem, it's a culture problem. It is also a problem of leadership. And when I say leadership, it's not like people do not want to lead. I'm not talking about intent to lead. I'm talking about knowledge to lead.
Okay.
So for me, in the last few years, especially in the last, I would say 1 year, 1.5 years, as I spoken to more and more CFOs, because I have been a CFO for many years now, I've realized there is a huge gap in the knowledge of CFOs about AI. And that is not because they do not want to learn. That is simply because it has evolved so fast and it has been thought of as a technology. It is not being thought of as a disruptor of business.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things.
Yes.
Okay, if I look at the job of a CFO, everybody says finance. Job of finance is not actually the job of a CFO. The job of the CFO is to protect the business.
Correct.
It is to make sure the business survives, the business thrives, right? And it's there for the future. It's competitive for the future. Why do you need finance? Why do you need profits? To be competitive in the future. So we go one level below, but actually that is the job of the CFO.
As you're saying this, I think you're so right. Let's look at the timeline of finance. Initially, they were expected to be historians. Report what happened. And then with some digitization, they were analysts. Explain what happened and why did it happen. And today, at such rapid advancements, and you said evolve, but it's still evolving every day, right? So today they're being seen as forecasters, predictors, analysts, historians, everything. So what does a CFO do today? I mean,
I think the CFO is in a bit of a cusp right now, because it has been, as you said, it's been evolving so much, and definitely strategy has become a very big part of their job. But if you look at the last 6 years, it's been disruption after disruption. It's been COVID, it's been wars, it's been supply chain crisis, it's been now AI. And what they're doing is managing, risk, managing disruption all the
Growth.
time.
Yeah.
Growth. The difference is, I feel that so far they've been managing current risk and past risk. I mean, what they are seeing. I think where it is going in the future is, I have a term, chief future officer. That's probably what the CFO is going to become, because it is really about predicting how is that disruption going to happen in the future. And which is why, again, I wrote the book, because to me, AI is going to be one of the biggest disruptors of your business model. And if the CFO is not at the table leading that disruption, the disruption will happen before they know it. So you need to understand AI to know how is it going to disrupt. You need to understand AI to be able to protect your business for the future. And that's
But-
going to be the job also.
As a CFO who's watching us, see, what has been ROI for a CFO? You do something and then you look at the cause and effect, and then you calculate the ROI. But AI operates in uncertainty. So how would you advise CFOs? How should they really evaluate their AI ROI today?
I think AI outcomes are very uncertain. I think we have to be clear on that. I don't know a single CFO who can raise their hand and say, I've had fantastic ROI on every AI initiative that I have done. And it is for two reasons. Firstly, AI is just scaling. So far, we've been mostly in experimentation mode. The scale is just starting to come. So we don't have that many learnings to rely on of other companies, of others. So we're all in learning mode. So ROI is also not coming because you don't have templates yet. It will happen. It will happen, but it's going to take some time. Second is that the technology is changing so fast, you cannot really learn from the other company. Even if some company has done a good job, by the time you take that and implement it, technology has changed. So how do you deal with it? So the whole uncertain, I agree with you, it's a very uncertain environment, and CFOs are very uncomfortable with that uncertainty of ROI. I would like CFOs to shift their mindset a little bit to more a venture capital mindset. So what does a venture capitalist do? They have a portfolio. Right. In that portfolio, some companies will do very well, some companies may fail miserably.
Yeah.
Right. To me, AI is like that. Right. If you think of AI as a portfolio,
Wow.
and you say that some of them will take off, will give you tremendous success, outsized returns, some of them probably will fail miserably, then you change your mindset a little bit and think of it as portfolio value rather than value of an initiative alone. Of course, you need to measure. I'm not saying you do not measure each initiative, etc. But your ROI should come from the portfolio together and not from each initiative. Important thing is to fail fast where you fail.
So
Right? For that, you need governance, you need success criteria, you need, to track it, and you need flexible capital allocation, which is again something we are not as comfortable with. So again, what does a VC do? They're able to move their capital when they want to, which is not true of CFOs.
So you want CFOs to become venture capitalists now?
Absolutely. and it's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm asking them to apply the mindset. Because sometimes that mindset, it doesn't mean venture capitalists don't make money. They do.
They do. Yes,
They do.
You're right. See, I run an AI company. I go to procurement, and they tell us that they rely on the dashboards, but there's still a lot of intent play. They cannot trust. See, dashboards are good and they're more factful, but almost every CXO, Chief Procurement Officer, Chief Finance Officer, they are now expected to be a Chief Everything Officer. They have to work very closely to the business. Dashboards tell a different story, but when you're more business aware, you know that the reality, the context of everything changes. So what changes about the role of intuition in today's world? And what's actually the role of a CFO in the entire AI enterprise strategy? What should a CFO do? Just wait and watch, invest, wait and watch. What do you recommend?
So let me take both your questions. The first one is on intuition. I have a strong belief in intuition. For me, data, they say data never lies, but the fact is it really depends on what data you're taking. You can put it in whichever context and make it tell whatever story you want to.
It never lies, but it hallucinates.
It hallucinates, absolutely. So you can, can only rely that much on data. Data is fantastic. I love it. But there is an extent beyond which it is your intuition that tells you what you should do and should not do. And I think as humans, we have fantastic intuition, and that's our strength. If we ignore that, we are ignoring something fundamental. On your second question on what should CFOs do, actually that's the entire premise of my book, that they need to take charge of the enterprise AI strategy. They need to co-lead it. I'm not saying lead it, I'm saying co-lead it. And for me, co-leading means being at the table for AI strategy, being at the table for AI investments, being at the table for AI risk, for cost, everything there. Strategy of AI has to be entwined completely with the strategic goals of the company. It is not about having 2,000 initiatives mushrooming in the organization because AI is cool to do. It is really about where does it make sense to implement, where it can make a difference in your company. Like, for example, in the companies I have been in one, it made sense from a customer service perspective to give planning to the hands of customers rather than inside the company.
Correct.
In one, it is about product design, which is about time to market. It directly impacts your revenue, directly impacts your cost, directly impacts your competitive advantage, right? In order to know where it can do that, it is important for the CFO along with the CEO and the COO to sit together, and anybody, of course, the CTO and so on and so forth. It is not one person making the decision. So what are your strategic goals? How should those strategic goals be aligned with AI? Use a Pareto analysis, make sure that it is few impactful ones rather than a lot. Then how do you fund it? And then how do you think of it as a VC thing where some of that will fail, some of that will succeed? And then how do you control the risk associated with it, be it legal, regulatory? We know all the, there are numerous risks, but then you need governance. No innovation is going to succeed if you don't have good governance to make it sustainable. So how do you think through it end to end? I do think it is the CFO's job. We're not thinking of it that way, but to me, it actually is the CFO's job.
So, and do you also think that CFOs need to understand a bit more about technology and algorithms, or no?
I absolutely think so. They do not need to become engineers, right? The intent is not that you start coding and become an engineer.
Because it's very hard for them to.
It's very hard, and there's no requirement either to do that. But you need to understand concepts. So, for example, in my book, I've explained 50 AI concepts, not because I want CFOs to become engineers and start coding. Those 50 concepts are essential for them to have the right discussions. Now, if you want to know what are the opportunities, what are the risks of AI, how do you challenge assumptions that others are making in the organization, what kind of decisions can you make with AI, what can you not make with AI, any of those things, and actually sit down and talk to your tech teams with the same terminology, you have to have an understanding of AI. Two is, if it's going to be embedded in most of your organization all through, you cannot not know it. It is not possible for us to sit on the sidelines and say that, we do not know what a workload means. Because at the end of the day, that workload is going to determine the cost that impacts in your P&L. If you don't understand those pricing models that talk about tokens, that talk about workloads, that talk about consumption, we cannot control it.
I was also thinking about your answer on how should a CFO measure the AI ROI. You see, I was talking to, it was playing in the back of my mind. I was talking to a procurement leader, and I asked him, what do you do in your day-to-day job? And he said, I come to office thinking about something, and then there's something happens, and then somebody comes in with their own plate, and then they give it to me, and I have to serve and eat and everything that they've got, and everything that I thought to do strategic goes for a toss. And then I asked, so where does all of the firefighting that you do goes? Does that go into your performance parameters? And he said no. And so when I told him about the things that AI can do, he said, even then it wouldn't matter. I said, why? It's because he said, what you're saying AI will do is AI will not allow fires to be there in the first place. So if there would be no fire, what will I do? Because I'm a firefighter, right? So if you're saying there will be no fires, it still wouldn't reflect into my report card, because nobody is giving me incentives for not allowing the fire to happen in the first place. So do you think that the wrong people in departments are getting promoted, who I mean, this is something that ChatGPT wouldn't know, so I'm asking.
I think um, I think that's very dependent on the organization. I would not make a generalization that wrong people get promoted. I've seen very good leaders. I've seen very good people.
Hmm.
I think yes, of course, there are people who spend their time firefighting,
Yeah.
but I think there are lots of people who do think long term and who do think about the future. There is a concept, there is a book called Adaptive Leadership by a gentleman called Ron Heifetz.
Okay.
And I really like it. And the reason why I like it is he explains that in the last few years, so what you're talking about has especially become true of the last few years because we are in constant crisis in an organization. It is not just a tactical crisis, you're getting hit with big crisis
Yeah, strategic
all the
crisis,
time.
yeah.
And what happens is there's only that much tolerance to crisis that any of us have. So if you think of it like a curve, as the crisis level goes up, then and you look at yourself as a straight line, you basically, there is a level till which that curve can go that you can handle it. Once it reaches a certain level, you're so overwhelmed by crisis that you go into what is called work avoidance. And what you're talking about is actually work avoidance.
Yeah.
It is not leadership, right? Because what we are doing is trying to put out this fire, that fire, because it's easier to put out the small fire that is existing today than it is to put out the large fire that is
Correct.
existing
You're
somewhere
right.
else.
You're right.
Right? So how do we adapt to that mentality and recognize the fact that we are doing work avoidance as leaders?
And I think see, people who are in the business of making other people feel more certain make a lot of money. See, stockbrokers, what do? They make you feel more certain about the future. Astrologers, it's an industry that is taken over by storm recently. They make you feel more certain. Do you think that's the job of a CFO today? That it's just to make everybody feel more certain?
I mean, I definitely think, I don't just think it's the job of the CFO, I think it's the job of the CEO and all the leaders, the executive team in the organization. There's so much anxiety in organizations today at every level. It is not one level, including at the executive level, right? There is anxiety all through.
I think even in
And
colleges.
even in colleges, absolutely. It starts from there, right? There is anxiety at every level, and people cannot operate in anxiety.
Yes.
I mean, we are human beings. You are an expert on the brain, right? Our brain freezes. The moment you have anxiety, you do not perform. So if you want your organization to perform, the only way you can do it is to give people assurance. Now, if they constantly feel, I'm going to lose my job tomorrow, something else is going to happen, business may exist, not exist, how can anybody perform?
I'll tell you a good story. So I talked to a lot of people from the army, and then I asked, and I was also telling this to Suparna the other day. I did a podcast with her. I told her that I got very surprised looking at the training that the army people go through. And I asked this Lieutenant General, I think he was commanding one of the Gorkha battalions. I asked him, you guys have to work in chaos. There's a bomb blast, somebody's coming with a rod hitting you from behind, somebody's firing bullets. So there's the weirdest form of chaos that can happen that one can think. You perform there, that's your job. When you are in your training academy, you are trained to be structured, disciplined, consistent. You have to get up at a certain time. You have to go assemble at a certain time. So they train you for discipline. But you have to perform at chaos. Why are they even training you? Why are they not giving you bombs and you just go to simulations of terrorist attack and you train there? And he said something to me that changed, and it also resonated with neuroscience. When you are put under pressure and chaos, all the strategy, it goes for a toss. It's like Muhammad Ali said that you step into a ring with a lot of strategy, and the moment the first punch hits you, no, there's no strategy. So he said that the moment the first bomb explodes, there's pressure and chaos, and the moment there's pressure, people default to their core. And at the IMA, they train you to change your core and reorganize your DNA so that when there's pressure, you do not function by what you've learned, but you function by what you've become, and that is follow the structure, follow the processes. And I think that is what a CFO needs to do, or anybody needs to do, is to change their DNA so that even if there's so much uncertainty out there. They follow processes, and I think there's a lot of growth happening in all sorts of companies with AI. I think it is not even the job of people to manage growth. The job of the people is to create systems, and it is the job of the systems to create growth and prosperity in everything. So I think this is what your message as well is, that everybody needs to be more certain and make other people feel more certain. But one more question. What mistakes have you made? Because I'm sure you've learned from a lot of your mistakes. So how did uncertainty change you as a leader? Give me a story.
Um, let me actually, I would split that into kind of two questions. One is mistakes, and the other is uncertainty. Now, if you look at, let me answer the uncertainty part first. I grew up with a mathematical background. Right now, mathematics goes on a definitive basis rather than a probabilistic basis.
Yeah.
A lot of math is about definitive. I mean, if you do something in the right way, you will get one answer.
Yeah.
There is no two answers and three
Yes.
answers on it. So a large part of the first part of my life, I was a very definitive person. You do it this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, you will come to answer Y.
Yeah.
And so on. I think in the last, I would say at least about 10 years, I have completely changed in that sense. So I used to rely a lot on data. I still do. It's not like I don't rely a lot on data. But I think previously you had 80% data to make a decision. You could get to it.
Okay.
Right? In times of uncertainty, because a lot of it is about deciding things that have never happened in the past. So you
Correct.
don't have the
Yeah.
data to make
Yeah.
that decision.
Correct.
So today, with 5% data or sometimes no data, I'm now comfortable enough making a decision and standing behind that decision. Previously, I would second guess myself, third guess myself, say I don't have enough data. How do I do this? I think now it is really about taking decisions on the fly. You have the data, fantastic. If I can get 80%, I ask for 80%.
Yeah.
If I have 0%, I say, here are my 5 options. Okay, what is the probability of this succeeding versus this succeeding versus this succeeding? Best probability here, take a bet on it. Not just take a bet on it, but be open to the organization saying that I'm taking a bet on it with these assumptions. It may go well, may not go well,
Yeah.
but are you all with me?
Yes.
To do this. And there is and people support you if they know that if
You've
you
got depth.
are transparent with them as to why you're doing what you're doing, and the fact that if we fail, we fail together, and it's okay, and I'm accountable, and that's also okay.
The psychology says that in times of uncertainty, ignorance is a superpower. And today you get unfinished data all the time, evolving data, changing data. What is that one thing that you ignore when you're making decisions, or that you would advise people to ignore?
I would say noise. So a lot of times there is so much noise. Everybody's telling you different things. There is data about different things. There is reading about different things. I mean, nowadays it's a world of a lot of noise.
Okay.
I think the best leaders cut out that noise and are able to say, here are the 3 things that actually matter. It doesn't matter what are the 100 things around it. Here, this is what we need to prioritize and work on, and cut out the noise and just go for the core of it.
And
I
how
think
do you-
that becomes a superpower.
And
by
how do
itself.
you identify what's a noise versus what's really music?
I think that's a judgment. I have learned from some of the best people in that. There are especially a couple of leaders that I have worked with whom I have really seen cut to the chase. They can sit where people are talking, saying numerous things, and then they will ask one question which is right at the heart and the core of it, and cut the rest out. I think that comes with experience. It comes from sharpness of mind. It comes from clarity of mind. Now, if you fill your mind with 100 things, you will always be confused. Right? If you know what is important to my organization is these 3 things. It comes back to those 3. Whatever else happens, it comes back to those 3.
Okay. So
Right.
you advise people to prioritize and then just stick by it and follow the system.
Absolutely.
You see, and I've taken a lot of your time, so I'll wrap up with this question. Every time there's an evolution, it forces people to change the way they've lived their life, to change the way they think about the most important aspects of their life. With AI, everything is going to change. You may realize it today, you may realize it tomorrow, but it has to, because AI is not some form of technology. It is a completely different beast and machine and mechanism. I also think it's not just technology. It is a sense of responsibility, story, um, courage. I don't know. It's just you said AI is a culture problem, right? So overall, when you zoom out and when you look at AI and where this world is going, are you worried or are you more optimistic?
I'm worried for the short term and optimistic for the future. The reason I'm worried for the short term is what we discussed before, because I think people are taking a very short term view. So I have never seen such a market before, where there are unprecedented layoffs, there is anxiety, there is panic. And for leaders to manage that, they will probably spend more time managing that anxiety than doing something productive about it for the future.
And then doing something at the
And,
root cause.
absolutely, because we have limited time. We have to spend it in what we can, and that is going to derail us for the short term. In the long term, I think AI is going to become like the internet or anything else, like the smartphone. I mean, we take all those things for granted. We don't think of them as an innovation any longer.
Yes.
Right? It's going to become part and parcel of our lives, be it personal lives, be it professional lives, and we probably will not think about it. It'll be something that we operate, we use, it enhances our life. We probably will have much better lives in the future thanks to AI than we do today. But we just don't know it yet.
Yes. And you know what I think is, every AI company today is trying to disrupt more on the enterprise side of things. But I believe that adoption in enterprises will only be successful once adoption across the B2C segment is normalized around AI and the blue collar jobs and everything. Because if you adopt something in your personal life, then you change the way you live. And once you are accustomed and when you're seeing the benefits there, then things follow in your workplace. So I think that's where we're heading, and if we do everything right, not just treat the symptoms, ignore the noise, listen to the music, overall things will be better, and at the end, everybody would have a better life. What's that one thing? And this is kind of a ritual that I do as I wrap up. What's that one thing that you would want people to stop doing, and one thing that you'd want people to start doing?
I would want people to stop worrying so much.
Okay.
Take one day at a time, things will work out.
Okay.
The one thing I think they should start doing is thinking about how can they reinvent themselves.
Reading a book.
Reading my book also, but also just reinvent themselves, because I think it's important for us every day to evaluate how do we need to change, not how the world needs to change, because the world will change if we change.
Interesting. All right, Divya, thank you so much for your time. I think if anybody watches this conversation, the one takeaway that I can bet they will have is how do they arrange their priorities, and for CFOs watching us, I believe it will give them some epiphany that they should at least have a basic core understanding of algorithms and tech, so that they can at least become more context aware and be better at managing their anxiety around AI. So thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you,
this with me.
Razum, for having me here. Fantastic conversation.
Thank you.